Welcome to another episode of InteSoul Leadership, where we explore the advanced strategies that really help develop corporate leadership and help us to advance our effectiveness as well as expand our growth and learning. You might have been wondering, why InteSoul Leadership? It's really our soul that contains our mind, our will, and our intellect. And the healthier we are in those three areas, the better we lead, the better outcomes we have in our organization, the better experiences and interactions we have with our team. And today we're talking about 5 strategies that are important on corporate level leadership development in order to really meet the changes and the fast pace and challenges that corporations are experiencing in today's climate. It's important for us to clamp down on these 5 advanced strategies, even more so than we've ever in the past. And so I'm highlighting those today on InteSoul Leadership. And I hope and I pray that your mind, your soul, your spirit, your will, your intellect are all in a healthy place to receive today. And hopefully that this will even elevate you in those areas. So let's dive in, and we're going to talk about corporate leadership and those advanced strategies. The first one is adaptive leadership. I mentioned it right off in the introduction. And by the way, I am Yvette C Owens, your host today and the creator of InteSoul Leadership, which is a part of my organization called DestinySpeak, Inc. So InteSoul Leadership, this broadcast, is a part of my heart to continue to help promote, support, build up leaders. Because I know when leaders are healthy and taking care of themselves in a healthy way, then those who are around them will also be healthy and the organizations will be healthy. So again, let's jump in. We're going to talk about advanced strategies for leadership development in corporations. The first one is adaptive leadership. And that adaptive leadership talks about, how do I navigate the changes and the fast-paced challenges that are coming to me? Have you thought in the last, I'd say even last couple of weeks, because it's always happening, how in the world am I going to get all this done? How am I going to keep up with managing what's already on our plate and embrace the new so we can stay a part of and ahead of the curve so that we can be always state-of-the-art on the cutting edge? How do you do that? I know personally, when I look at all the things that my hands are assigned to do, and I often say, God, if there's anything on this plate that should not be, please tell me. I am glad to let it go. Fortunately or not fortunately, unfortunately, nothing's been removed. So that means I have to become more adaptive in my leadership skills, because it really crosses multiple organizations. It crosses multiple teams. I know you probably are sitting in the same situation. Even if you have one team, it's requiring you to learn, navigate, and manage and lead multiple efforts going on at the same time. That's just the nature of where we are. Remember the days when you had one assignment and then when you completed that, you can move on? Those days are long gone, right? They're long gone. And now we're, as leaders, being asked to lead multiple teams and or multiple efforts and or multiple organizations. And so you might say, what does that multiple organization look like? No, if you're employed in one organization, obviously you're loyal and you're serving that organization. However, you may, outside of your 9 to 5, also be called into helping a ministry or a community group, which comes with equally demanding responsibilities. Are you in that situation like me? And then there's our families, right? And then you have your immediate family. You may have your extended family. You may have your parents. You may have siblings or nieces and nephews that you're taking care of. The demands on a leader are great, but I always believe that nothing comes to me that I've not been prepared to handle. And so I believe that if God allows it to come to me and he assigns my hands to do it, then I've got to figure out and tap into how I'm going to get it done. And it's these 5 advanced strategies that I'm talking about within the corporate space and external to corporate that are going to help you as a leader. That's my desire. So again, adaptive leadership, how fast are we able to change and take on the challenges while keeping the momentum going on what's ever already going on our plate? I heard something most recently about we shouldn't try to maintain balance, we should maintain harmony. That breathed life into my very soul because it made more sense. And here's why. Because when you talk about balance, it's like everything equal. And I have to keep an equal rhythm, an equal pace, an equal level of energy in all those spaces. That's not sustainable and rarely possible. But when you talk about harmony, which speaks volumes to my very soul, because being an agile change leadership professional, that's exactly what we do. We understand everything that's on our space, everything that's within our sphere of influence. I know what's there, but yet I am agile enough to know where my attention is required. And even if I'm working in some space where it's a priority right now, and let me dispel this, there is not multiple priorities. It's impossible to have multiple priorities. There's one, which is why this concept of harmony is so profound, because when it's harmony, then I'm aware of everything that is in my sphere of influence and what I need to take care of. But as I'm dealing with the priority, if something comes up and strikes me like, this might be good, or I might need to consider this when I'm dealing with this other thing that's on my plate, or this might help with that thing that I also have on my plate, or this might help with this individual that I'm developing over here. That's what harmony is, keeping everything in view, yet giving your attention and your rest in the place of priority, but aware enough and agile enough in your mindset to recognize when something can benefit one of the other things that you have going on. That's adaptive leadership at its best. And we can do it. I would suggest that you probably do some of it, just not all of it. And the more you become conscious of this thing called harmony versus balance, then I believe you will become even greater at it. Because I know just in the short time that I become more sensitive to it, that I've become even better at maintaining harmony as opposed to trying maintaining balance, right? And so that's adaptive leadership. That's the first one. Then second one is strategic vision, always having an eye out. And I kind of touched on it in adaptive leadership, right? Strategic vision is what's coming next. Where should we be going? Because as a leader, I'm growing, I'm seeking learning, I'm looking out for what's happening in the sphere of places that really pour into what will serve my needs and my organization's needs. For instance, agile change leadership. Well, what is happening in the change management space, in the change leadership space? How is that space maturing? Because it's relatively new compared to project management. How are the industry leaders responding to the growth of this industry? What's happening in that space? How are organizations adapting and embracing it? Or are they? How have they changed? Have organizations changed from having dedicated change management organizations, or have they started to spread it among the responsibilities of the leaders they already have? How is that working? How is it not working? How can we, as an organization, specifically me as DestinySpeak, how can I come in alongside corporations and help their leaders become more change, agile, conscious, and understand those principles? That's exactly what I do, because I've been in organizations where we've had change, leadership, management, dedicated organizations, yet then it was decided, no, we're going to disband those organizations, and it really should be a part of the responsibility of every leader. That takes time to change that cultural behavior, because one, every leader isn't aware of change leadership, and they are already feeling saturated with the work that they have on their plate. Now we're adding another responsibility that they're not even familiar with. So I come alongside organizations that help build their leadership team to become more agile in leadership, to be able to manage those changes and to understand just the principles of agile change leadership so they can become more aware. So strategic vision is, I'm doing the day-to-day and I understand the next project, but how far out can I look on that roadmap to talk to my team, to talk to my business partners, to talk to my customers, to talk to my operation partners, to talk to my peer organization and supportive organization to see where should we be headed next. Because as a visionary leader, the further out you are, the better you can prepare your organization for where they're going next, right? And how it weaves into where they are now. So we have adaptive leadership, we have strategic vision, we have inclusive leadership. And we're talking about the 5 advanced strategies in leadership that will make your leaders ahead above all other leaderships, which means your organization is above other organizations, because now your leaders are taking on a greater, different mindset, a more advanced mindset in strategic development and leadership development. So we've talked about adaptive leadership, we've talked about strategic vision, now inclusive leadership. How are we at including every voice so that we get every perspective, so that we understand how we can better serve each individual in our organization, help them grow, help them mature, help them even expand into where they want to go? Because as we help the members of our organization grow and really tap into what is they're passionate about, then we as an organization, as leaders, get better product, better outcomes from their performance as well, because now they're in a happy space. They're in a space that's engaging them. They're in a space that's challenging them in a good way that they asked for. How can we do that? So that's what's called inclusive leadership, where we absolutely know every member on our team and we're giving them the ability to share with us what they value, pairing it with what your organization values, and then seeing where there's synergy and making that work well together. Growing together is a phenomenal place to be as an organization. And then we have emotional intelligence. I know there's been a lot of conversation around emotional intelligence in the market, in all industries. We've heard around emotional intelligence, but how many of us really understand it? And when we talk about it, is it really helping us overcome our biases? Is it really helping us become more allies, better advocates? Is it really helping us to even elevate our own authenticity in the workplace? So emotional intelligence is really around being self-aware, self-managing, socially aware, social responsibility, and critical thinking, and building each one of those muscles up so that in real time, you're able to maneuver each of those quadrants, each of those spaces. And that's where we need our leaders to get to, that they're so emotionally intelligent that they're able to help their teams become emotionally intelligent. And we don't have a lot of those mental hijacking that happens when people aren't emotionally intelligent. We don't have the harassment or the trauma being caused to our individuals and organizations, because leaders know when, hey, today's not a good day. I need to just figure out how to be low-key and self-manage my way through the day until I'm in a better space, and take on practices of how I'm getting in that good space so I have less of those days where, yeah, that's not happening. Or I'm not so self-conscious that I'm unaware of what's going on around me, one, in the communities that we serve or within the people around us. I'm able to actually be aware and help my team through those situations, what's happening in the communities where your teams live, your individuals on your teams live. We need to be socially aware. What's happening globally that could be impacting members of your team? Socially aware. And then socially responsible, which doesn't mean that we avoid the conversations. It means that we're aware enough that we can embark upon those conversations, give people safe space to talk about those conversations. I remember when I had 2 development teams, and every member was from India. And the whole team came over and they were very new, starting together. So I was acclimating them into our organization, into our project. But as a Black female, they were interacting with me initially from what they saw on TV, in the news, and things like that. And I was not presenting the image that they were getting through media. And that was a good thing. So it started to have them to have questions. They were becoming more socially aware. And therefore, with me being open about who I am as a Black woman in corporate, in America, in New England, they were now open to learn about, we cannot generalize every Black female in the way that media necessarily presents them. And if I can't generalize Black females that way, maybe I can't generalize any other minority that way or any other person that way, even the majority. Maybe every white female or every white male is not like what we see in the media. Maybe every Hispanic or Latin or Asian person is not like what we see in the media. And so it really was refreshing. Our team conversations, not just talking about the work, but talking about each other's culture and our upbringing and what's happening in our communities and things like that. It was wonderful. It was like a form of the United Nations, but was allowed to happen because as the leader of that team, I gave the space to have those inclusive conversations. I wasn't afraid of what they may bring as what their perspective was, because I know my truth. I know my authentic self, and I know I'm not like everyone. And I know more people who are like me. So it was, and maybe it's because also I have very innate teaching skills that it opened up the door for me to be able to share with them, here's what the world looks like from my perspective. They were able and willing to listen because I gave them the same opportunity. So that's what we talk about inclusive leadership. That's that example. And we talked about emotional intelligence and kind of blended those two together, right? Again, emotional intelligence being self-aware, self-managed, socially aware, social responsibility, and critical thinking. And then lastly, continuous feedback and development. Have you had the experience where you've just been doing the work, you felt like you were doing the best you could do with the information that you had, with the resources you had, and yet you got to your annual review and found out that people felt differently about you? Let me share one more story with you. I was actually in an interview. So I felt confident about my experiences, my performance, to go to the next level in applying for this position in the office. As I sat down across the desk from my interviewer, who happened to be a senior leader within my organizational rank. So it was my leader and then his leader and then this person. So it shouldn't have been someone who was unfamiliar with me or my work. But as soon as I sat down, she said, "You're not going to get this position because you're like a bull in a china closet and this is not a good fit for you." Well, can I tell you, that was like a sucker punch in my belly. And I was like, what just happened? Because I had never heard that before. I had never received that feedback before. And at that time, I was getting continuous feedback from my leader, but there was obviously a disconnect between what he thought of me and what his most senior leader thought of me. So it's important that we give people constant feedback. Now, you might be wondering what happened after that incident, Yvette. Well, I composed myself. I didn't lose my composure in there because I had already been like punched in the gut, right, with those words. And I wasn't going to let that person get the best of me. I did ask, well, why am I just hearing this now? And she said, well, I'm telling you now. So that told me right off that there was some emotional intelligence that wasn't really working really well from her perspective. And I left. I said, okay. I left the office and I immediately called a peer. Well, she wasn't a peer because she had a senior position in the corporation other than me, but she was a friend. And I recounted the situation to her, and she advised me to go and talk to other leaders in the organization, because can I tell you that walk from that office back to my office was all about, oh my God, I've been in this organization for 25 years. I have a daughter. I'm a single mom. My daughter's getting ready to go to college or do something after high school. How am I going to take care of her? I have a home. I have a mortgage. I have a car note. How am I going to do this? All of those questions were going, and is one person's opinion about me going to totally wreck and ruin what I built, my reputation I built for 20 some years in this organization? Because I had never, and I'm not exaggerating, never received that feedback. Have you had that experience or something similar? I know some of you have, because as I tell this story on different occasions, other people say, I know exactly what you're talking about. This is why continuous feedback and development is important, and to get it from all ways. So my friend's advice was go talk to other leaders in the organization so that they can share with you how you're really viewed, leaders that you used to work for. See if your reputation has changed. Well, thank God for grace and mercy. Because I talked to two different leaders, one that I worked for directly and another that I served his people, or my organization served him in the past. Both of them still had great things to say about me, thank God. One said, the one who my organization used to serve and service their people, said, I knew what you did when you were working with us and your teams were working with us. You've been hidden in the last couple of years. I don't know what you've been doing lately. So you need to get visible again. That was valuable feedback. He knew still, if I have a good reputation, I'm thinking that that good reputation is still preceding you, but you don't want it to get too old. You don't want it to be old reputation. You want it to always be a current reputation. And even if you don't work with someone or service their teams anymore, you should still stay in contact with them to let them know, so they know what you're doing, so that they know how you're serving the organization, the corporation, and how you're servicing their team and how it might impact what their teams are doing. Because one way or another, it's probably related. The other person who I worked with, we were peers at one time, traveling the country, and then he was elevated to a senior position, and then I worked for him at one point. And he was such an advocate, such a strong advocate, to the point that he was like, you need to get out of there. And he literally helped me look for other positions. So I say that to say it is important not only to give our teams constant feedback throughout the year, not waiting. First, don't wait for just annual reviews, but give constant feedback all the time. And then if you are an individual contributor, or even you as a leader, always go out and test the waters. Check in with people that you've worked with before in the past and say, just see how you're viewed in the organization. This is especially important when you're a part of large corporations, because we can get lost in that space, but you always want to remain relevant. So we've talked about adaptive leadership, strategic vision, inclusive leadership, emotional intelligence, and continuous feedback and development. And those two gentlemen, well, actually even the woman who's my friend who is in senior leadership, all three of them gave me things that I could, even because this scenario was very negative to me and hurtful, and I would even say traumatic, because I can still recount it to you today, and it was years ago. I learned lessons from it, and it helped me to develop how I stay relevant in the corporation. So here's what I invite you to do. I invite you to visit my website, www.DestinySpeak.com, because I am releasing a webinar, 3-day webinar, and a 30-day journal called Unlock Your Leadership Potential. It incorporates every one of these advanced strategies that you can take on a personal journey in getting better, in reinforcing what you may be doing well now, but taking it to the next level. And you can sign up for that webinar, as well as order this 30-day journal of Unlock Your Leadership Potential through my website. And the website again is www.DestinySpeak.com. That's DestinySpeak.com. speak.com. Both the journal and the registration for the webinar you'll find on my website. You will also find on my website an ability to have a discovery call with me if you'd like me to come into your organization and provide a private workshop for your teams of leaders, your personal team, regardless of the organization. If you think this would be of value, I do. I think it would be of value to you to help unlock your leadership potential for your teams, your team of leaders, even your structured teams, because every one of them is a leader. I think it would be a huge help to have me come in, facilitate a workshop, or be a speaker around the concept that's in this journal and what I'm presenting in the workshops and the webinar. You can all sign up for those 3 on my website. So again, you can get the 30-day journal, and it's 30 days because once you get these 30 days, then throughout the year, throughout time, you can just repeat these concepts and continue to get stronger. It's like going to the gym and building a muscle. As long as you continue to practice those things that are presented in that journal and in this webinar and in my workshops, you will continue to build a stronger muscle in advanced leadership strategies. So I invite you to do those things and share your stories on my website as well. And your story may be a part of our exclusive content. Thank you for joining us. Remember to always lead with purpose and always invite innovation and be ready to be agile and adaptive in your leadership style, which we can talk about on another time, because leadership style has a lot to do with how effective you are in your leadership. We've got to even be adaptive in our leadership style. We cannot always, every situation does not always call for the same leadership style. So we've got to be fluid in that as well. Okay? Thank you again. Lead with purpose, with passion, and be innovative and adaptive. And I'll see you next time on InteSoul Leadership.